Welcome to Generations, a show which helps people 50 and better lead happy, healthy, and productive lives. Here's your moderator for today's show, Beverly Crosby.
Hello and welcome to Generations. My name is Beverly Crosby. Let me ask you a question. Have you had a bucket list or did you cross everything off of it? Do you think it's too late? Well, our special guest today is Janice Strootman, and she's going to tell us her story about how she crossed off one really big item on her list, completing the Alcatraz Swim. And what's really amazing about that is she was age 70. So with that, let's meet our co-host and then let's hear Jan's story. Hello, everyone. Good to see you today. Nadia Jordana, how are you?
I'm good, and I'm always happy to be on this show.
And Midge Bubani.
I'm delighted to be here. I'm excited to speak with our guest today.
David Lapaco, glad to see you.
Nice to be here. I'm hoping to persuade our guest that there are easier ways to visit the city of San Francisco.
Okay, and Gloria Van Dementrout.
Thank you. Thank you, Beverly. I'm doing great, calm and relaxed and eager to get into our show.
Okay, and with that, let's meet our guests. Janice. And Jan, do you like to be called Jan or Janice?
Either one.
Okay, Janice Strootman. Welcome to our show. We are so excited to hear about your journey and your accomplishments at the young age of 70. Let's go back a little bit. Let's rewind. Can you tell us, how did you get interested in swimming to start with?
I started swimming when I was 10 years old. We had a small lake not far from our house that I could walk to, and back in the day, we could do that. Not now, I don't think. But anyway, I started swimming then, and I took lessons all the way through junior life saving there. And I got hired there actually when I was 15 to be an apprentice teacher. And I taught there, and I paid my way through college by being a lifeguard and a teaching instructor swimming. And I met my husband at the University of Minnesota. My husband, 50 years next month. And we met at the U, and we married 3.5 years later. And we grew up together. So basically, we developed interests that were very similar. We had a lot in common to begin with, and we just have enjoyed a marvelous life. We are so blessed and lucky.
I think that's fantastic. And, I've met you before, Jan, and we've talked a little bit, but I didn't hear that story about you and your husband and college. Now, did you mention, does he swim too?
He does. He had his lifeguard certification as well, but he didn't pay his way through college doing that. But our kids also did that. They also lifeguarded, taught swimming.
Did you continue with the swimming then into the rest of your life on a regular basis?
I started going on canoe trips with a group of women. We'd go up north every summer for a week, and it would be at the same time my husband would do the tram, the bicycle ride across Minnesota. And so I continued my swimming then. I've always loved open water swimming. So that's the favorite. I don't really enjoy swimming length after length after length of a pool. It's much more interesting to swim out there where the loons are, and hopefully you might see a moose along the way or whatever. So I've enjoyed being up in the boundary waters a lot. That's how I continued swimming.
Have you been a racer? Have you raced often throughout your swimming career? The open water kind of lends to that.
No.
No? Oh, okay.
I take my time because my strongest suit is breaststroke. And so I cannot swim. You can't swim really fast doing that. We had a lake cabin up near Princeton on Blue Lake, and we used to swim the length of it for fun. Our kids are their friends. We used to have a goal to do that once in a while. And so I continued my love of swimming by doing that. And then the fellow that I actually ended up he invited me to do the Alcatraz swim. We used to swim the length of Half Moon Lake in Wisconsin.
Mhm.
Mutual friends had a cabin there that we would see each other there, and we'd do that. But I also lifeguarded with him, and we used to talk about, oh, what do you want to do for fun someday? And you know, as far as sports and all that, because when you're lifeguarding, not every day is sunny, and so you end up spending some time sitting in your car. And
Ah,
so we would have some good talks. And so he said he was planning to do, you know, things like the Alcatraz swim and this and that and the other thing. And I said, that really would be fun and interesting. I was 22 at the time.
okay. I think we're all eager to hear about that Alcatraz swim. And your friend just persuaded you to do it. Did you know anything about it, the dangers, how far it was before you really decided to do it?
No.
So
Well,
how far is it,
I knew
Jan?
that- I'm sorry.
How far is it from, did you swim from Alcatraz to San Francisco Bay then? Is that the route?
Presidio, isn't it?
Well, the city of San Francisco, it's 1.5 miles.
Okay, so, but you ferried out to Alcatraz Island and then made that swim.
Yes, it's quite a story, actually. This friend of mine that I lifeguarded with, he moved to San Francisco, and I lost touch with him for 30 years. He went out there, he got married, had his own family, and he started swimming Alcatraz, the Alcatraz Invitational. And so he happened to be back in town 2 years ago, and we all had dinner together. And the first thing out of his mouth was, I remember you wanted to do the Alcatraz swim. When are you doing it? And I looked at him and I said, you remembered that? And he said, sure. Never dawned on me to say something like, well, that was 50 years ago. Maybe not now, but did I say that? No.
And you were how old at the time?
70. I'm 72 now.
Yeah.
I did this swim on September 7th, 2019. So we continued to talk at dinner, and he said, seriously, you can stay with me when you come out here. We could train a little bit in the bay, and you could do that swim. And I thought, I had not been swimming for a whole year because my husband and I had been teaching in Slovakia. So I hadn't been in the water at all. And so I said, Mike, I don't know if I can swim one length, let alone 105 lengths of the pool. So he said, well, I'll go back and do some checking in San Francisco, and you see if you can swim, and we'll talk more. Well, the next day I went over to the Y, Edina Y, and I thought to myself, let's see how many lengths I can do. So I jumped in and I swam 105 because I knew I had to swim 105 lengths. So I thought, okay, just do it, right? So, and I'm a breaststroke swimmer. So sometimes I slowed way down, and then sometimes I did my regular pace. Sometimes I did a single breaststroke. Sometimes I did a double breaststroke. So I did it, and I got out and thought, okay, I can do the lengths. I can do the distance. So cold water, I wasn't so sure about because my friend had told me the water is 60 degrees there. Well, that didn't mean a whole lot to me, 60 degrees. I didn't pay attention to that too much. Should have. So what I should have done is trained here in Minnesota with ice cubes in my bathtub. That would have been about the equivalent of how cold it was.
Yeah.
I really should have sat in a bathtub full of ice cubes every day for a while.
Did you wear a wetsuit?
No, I did not.
Oh, wow.
How long
did
does it
not.
take you to swim, like in a pool, that many laps? How long does it take you in a pool?
Oh, the first day,
Yeah,
probably about 4 hours.
4 hours.
I was in there a long time.
And then how long did it take you to swim that Alcatraz swim?
1 hour and 40 minutes.
Wow.
Now, were
Oh, it's really
waves
nice.
also a problem, something you wouldn't encounter in a swimming pool?
Exactly. They were over my head.
Mhm.
They were
Oh.
over my head. When I was practicing in Minnesota, I went to the Bloomington Y and the outdoor, or yes, I went to the Edina Y. I went to Bloomington and Ridgefield outdoor pools. They're 50-meter pools. And I practiced swimming back and forth there. And I tried to do the lengths faster and faster every time I went. I tried to swim 3 miles a week. That was my goal. And so I thought, okay, if I can do that, then I should be fine. And we were at a friend's cabin and at Torch Lake in Michigan. And I swam across that lake, and that was 2.8 miles. And I thought, I swam farther than that because the boat I was following was going like this. So I know I put in probably closer to 4 miles on that trip.
Oh.
So I thought, okay, I can do it. When Mike, my friend, told me, in order to do the Alcatraz swim, you have to do 2 things or I won't let you come out here. He said, number 1, you have to have a wetsuit. Number 2, you have to have a pilot. That's a person who follows along with you in a kayak
Mhm.
and makes sure that you are heading in the right direction and that you're fine. I had neither.
Oh, my goodness.
What happened to that pilot?
Still don't know to this day. He just didn't come. Well, when we got to San Diego or San Francisco, and I started practicing in the bay with Mike in the Maritime Park there's a pier, and we swam inside. And the first day I did that, the water was so cold, but I jumped right in. I didn't know, I wasn't thinking that, oh, gee, I should put my toes in first and then go in up to my knees and then, gradually go in. Oh, no. I just jumped in, started swimming. And he said to go down to the buoy, which was about 3/4 of a mile, and turn around and come back. Well, there were sea lions and everything else out there swimming along with us, and other members of the South Bay Swim Club. So anyway, did
Well,
that, and halfway out, I thought, whoa, my legs started to cramp up, my stomach started to hurt. I was starting to hyperventilate a little bit. I did have prescription goggles on, and I thought, this is
Yeah, I was going to ask if you've had any close calls, because I know the world kind of takes a dim view of just swimming long distances out in the open. And I have a friend who will often swim across Cedar Lake in Minneapolis, and he'll see the park police heading for him, because they're really irritated that somebody would take such liberties and try something like this. And something like hypothermia, if you're in that channel between Alcatraz Island and San Francisco, I think could creep up on you in ways that you wouldn't even realize that it hit you that way. So have you had any close calls? Anytime you've been swimming out in the open like that?
not with water temperatures. A ski boat went right over my head one time. He came across the ropes.
Wow.
And I had to dive down into the mud or I would have been decapitated. So
Ooh.
that's the only close call I've had. And I was 14 when that happened. So,
Wow.
but anyway, yes, no. But when I can tell you the story of the swim, the night before the swim, we had, they have the carbo loads and all of that. And I had never trained for anything in my life other than labor with the labor classes I had for my 2 children. So I didn't know what to expect. So I had a glimpse of what athletes go through every day. And it was really something to get a little taste of what they do. So the night before, we had the carbo load and we were given instructions on where to go and all of this and how to proceed. And there was a lady next to me that was 75 years old, and she was doing the Alcatraz swim for the first time. And she was talking to me, and I was trying to listen to both. And Mike said, "Don't worry about it. Your pilot will tell you all of this, and he'll be right there with you. No worries." So I continued to talk to the lady next to me. I should have been paying attention. So the 2 days before, my daughter and son-in-law flew out from Hawaii to see me swim. And I was so shocked and floored by that. I couldn't believe it, but bless their hearts, they did. And so the first day Mike threw me in the bay, he said he was going to do that. So that's what I did. I swam down around the buoy and came out. Then I went back to his house and I took a 3-hour nap. I was exhausted. And I had a talk with myself. I said, I have to get my head, my body, and the bay in sync with each other, or I'm not going to be able to do this swim. So the second day, Mike put me out in the bay again, and he said, "Okay, I want you to do the same thing again, but try and do it a little faster," because he said yesterday you went way too slow, and he said you won't make it if you do it that slow. I thought, oh boy, okay. This time I did put my toes in first, then my knees, and I didn't go under the water for about 5 minutes maybe. I prepared myself a little bit the second day. So then I went out and I went around and back and I did better. And the conditions were perfect that day, the second day. So the third day, Mike said, "Today we're going to go out into the bay and we're going to swim where you're actually going to have the hardest conditions to swim in." And he said, "We're going to try and do the 1.5 hours." So that morning we woke up the third day, the flags were flying straight out. The wind was horrid. The waves were whitecaps. And I said, "We're going to swim in this?" He said, "Yes." So he said, "Well, we'll be okay." So I went out there and immediately I lost track of him. I couldn't find him. I couldn't see him. The waves were so high. This was the best practice I could have had because we were out there where the container ships were. I actually touched a container ship and looked up. And have you ever seen a container ship from the bottom?
No.
I hadn't either. It was quite something. So the waves were bouncing off that container ship over my head. I turned around. I had no idea where my friend was. None. So I said, okay, well, I just have to swim and get out of here. So I did that. And after a while, I did see him. And he came up to me and he said, "Jan," he said, "can you feel your fingers and your toes?" He said, "I can't. I have to get out." And so I said, "Well, yes, I can." And I said, "How much farther is it to do the 1.25 miles or 1.5 miles? Because I really need to see if I can do it in these conditions." And he said, he pointed to where I had to go and what I had to do. And then he made a beeline for the sauna. And so I kept going until I finished. And I thought, okay, now I know I can do the distance and in the cold water.
Mhm.
So I went home and slept for 3 hours again because I was exhausted. And so the next day was the day of the event. 6 a.m. we had to show up. I did. They canceled the event twice because of the weather conditions. The weather conditions were the same as the 2 days before when I had been out there with Mike.
Mhm.
The flags were flying straight out. The Coast Guard called it off twice because of the weather. And I thought, okay, well, it is what it is, I guess. So finally, the fog lifted for about 5 minutes, and the Coast Guard said the ferries could have people board and we could go out to Alcatraz Island and just wait until we could jump. Okay, and there's a whole there's a whole game plan for that too that I missed that night because I was talking to the lady next. So you have 5 seconds to get off that boat, that ferry. And so they line you up and boom, 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 you are off. And so Mike told me before I left, he said, no matter what happens, make sure you swim to the front of the ferry and then you'll be going in the right direction. Well, the thing that happened was the conditions were so rough, the ferries had to shut their engines off. And of course, in that wind, they turned. They turned. They were turning and they were pointing out to sea.
So you went the wrong direction?
I went the wrong direction. I started swimming and I was heading out to sea. I was going to Hawaii.
Oh,
What turned you around? What happened then that you turned around?
I got smacked in the face with a big wave of water. That was my first gulp of salt water. And then a jet ski came by and smacked me again with a wall of water. And he said, you're going the wrong way. And he pointed. So I had to turn around and I started swimming again. However, jet skis were flying all over the place. And this second one stopped and he said, I'm going to call over a great ski to pull you in line with the other swimmers. He said, you're out here by yourself. So I thought, okay, well, all right. So he did. I couldn't hear because I use hearing aids and I didn't have them in. And I couldn't see because when I jumped off the boat, the ferry, one of my goggles got fogged up. So I was only seeing with one eye. Salt water was in it. So he did. He brought over a jet ski that had a big, long metal grate on the back of it. And they used those to carry swimmers and things like that. So he pulled up right in front of me. Again, another gulp of water that I swallowed. So I was having a breakfast of salt water. So anyway, there was a fellow on the back of this great ski, and he had the most panicked look on his face, and he didn't have a wetsuit on either. And I said, can you move over so I can hold on? Because they wanted to pull me a little bit over to the right so I could be in the column of swimmers. He couldn't move. I think he was suffering from hypothermia already, I do.
Oh my.
So then I just grabbed onto the very corner of the great ski and that jet ski took off and I went boom, 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 like you would on a tube behind a boat.
mm-hmm.
And I thought, if I don't let go of this, I'm going to break an arm or a leg or ribs, and I'm going to be in trouble here. So I let go. I didn't know where I was, how close to the column of swimmers I was. So I thought, okay. I looked around briefly and I saw this kayak up on a trough. And then the next minute it was down. I couldn't see it. I thought, oh my goodness, these waves are high. If I don't put my head down and start swimming, I am going to be in real trouble here. So I thought, okay, I had heard that there'd been a woman that had died the year before because she didn't make it. And I thought I didn't want to be this year's statistic. So I put my head down and I started swimming and I swam and I swam. I thought it was a long time, but it couldn't have been because I finished in an hour and 40 minutes. I think I was in high gear at that point.
Wow.
Did
Well,
you worry about sharks?
Yeah.
Well, something did bump my leg and there are sharks in there for sure. But I wasn't too worried because I didn't see any blood. And I thought if I see blood, I know there's a shark here. If I don't see any blood, just keep going. Didn't see any blood, so I kept going.
Well, I thought you said you didn't have any close calls. I think what you just described sort of qualifies. But
I would too. Yeah.
I think there's about 3 of them.
Yeah.
How many
Wow.
how many people swam that day?
500.
these things are totally illogical, but there's something so satisfying like running a marathon, for example, of doing these things. It's kind of hard to describe that way.
Yeah.
It was unreal. When I got close to the pier where I was supposed to be, I thought, I know where I am now. I could see the Ghirardelli sign and I
Yeah.
could hear people. And I thought, okay, now I know where I'm supposed to go. And so I swam toward the pier and I saw my daughter and my family. My husband was there and some friends. And so I kept swimming, and my son-in-law was there, and I swam through where the two piers are in Maritime Park there. And then I had a half a mile to go because that's how far it is from the pier to shore. So I just thought, okay, well, the waves aren't nearly as high here because I'm inside the pier. So I kept swimming, and I heard all these voices, and I couldn't understand why there were all these people on the shore. If they had finished the swim, why weren't they in the hot showers and the sauna? They had winter coats on out there, and I was, but I didn't see anybody else. There were still a few jet skis flying around, but I was last. So I got out of the water, and of course my daughter had told the announcer for this event about me. My mother's 70 years old and she's here from Minnesota swimming this. And I thought, oh no, good grief.
But you made it. And I
That's
have to stop you right there because we only have about a little over a minute left here. And that definitely is a sink or swim story for sure. And during this last year, because of the pandemic, you haven't been able to go to the swimming pools. What have you been doing with your time? Anything new and different?
Yes, I took a year-long poetry class at the Loft with Gretchen Marquette, and I wrote a book. And so I am now in the process of finishing that book and looking at publishers, and Nadia is one of them. And so I have been busy doing that.
And that book is about what?
Well, it was about all of my teaching experiences, both in Minnesota and abroad. My husband and I taught in 4 different places. We retired 4 different times. And so I was writing about that, but now I've been talking to Nadia about some other ideas, some other things that I can include in a book. So I may have another part of a year's work left to do yet.
Okay, well, with that, our time is up, and we'll look forward to hearing more about that book. And Nadia is a great publisher and writer, so you're in good hands for sure. Nadia and Midge and David, Gloria, and Janice, thank you so much. It's been a good story today. And viewers, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Generations.